Three, two, one. This is Nick.
And this is Amanda.
And this is the Performance Plate Podcast, where we give you bite-sized bits of information based on nutrition and exercise science to improve your overall performance.
Welcome back to the Performance Plate Podcast. On this episode, we have my friend Mariella from my graduate program, who's here to talk with us about burnout. So before we get started today, I have a question for you. We ask all of our guests this question when they come on, just to get to know them a little bit better. If you were stranded on an island and you could only bring 3 items, what would they be and why?
Chapstick, number one.
What?
Chapstick is a hard yes. I have no other explanation besides the fact that I need to be comfortable in some capacity, and chapstick gives that to me.
I just can't. I'm
Does
amazed.
everybody say chapstick and you don't agree?
No, I'm mind blown because my fiance and my friend, they're like obsessed with chapstick. They always put it on. I'm like, is there something that I'm missing? Like, is there something wrong with my mouth that my lips don't get chapped and I don't feel that sensation? Like, I don't ever use it.
It's a girl thing. Maybe it's a girl thing.
Maybe.
This is a good question. I'm really overthinking it, so I'm just gonna not overthink it and go with my impulses. I'm so focused on survival. I'm like, I want to bring a knife.
Smart. We've got some weird answers, so don't.
Someone said a barbell.
Yeah.
Knife. Ooh, a barbell. Chopstick, a knife, and probably like a book or a journal, so that I have something to like touch and write in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put like a book and a pen, or a journal and a pen, like combo together.
That's fair. Yeah, that's
Cool.
allowed.
I like it.
The nice thing will to see the journal. I would love to see the journal from like day 1. I'm okay to day like 95. I'm not okay.
I'm not okay. I'm lying to myself.
Like, hour 3, I'm dying.
Yeah.
You know what we should do? Everyone that we have on, we should like pool together their answers and then have people vote on who they think would survive the longest.
Let's do it. I think that's great. If we get more and more guests, like let's just pull them all together.
Yeah.
Who's gonna win? I'm trying to think back of our answers. I don't know. I really don't know actually, because no one said like anything crazy. So this would be interesting to hear.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So Mariella, as we have all our guests do as well, please just introduce yourself. Tell us who you work with, what you specialize in, and you're going to talk about burnout and a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a holistic health and life coach and a self-proclaimed burnout expert, but I really do think that I am one at this point. And I help women, mainly in their 20s, a lot of post-grad women coming out of school looking like, oh, what am I going to do in my life, or working in corporate, to help them reclaim their health, confidence, and freedom. Because essentially that's what burnout, I don't want to say destroys. Destroys is such a heavy word, but compromises. So I got into it mainly because I had a burnout a year and a half ago that put me in the hospital. That was pretty intense. Oh my God. Nick's like, what? Like, I know nothing about this girl. But yeah, it put me in the hospital, and I started to understand that, like, yes, our stress response is super important, but what caused my stress response to get to such a point where my adrenals literally turned off? Like, how did I get in that position? Because I'm a healthy person. Like, I've been a healthy girl my whole life. I grew up with an almond mom. So I lived in a house that was all organic, and I worked out all the time, and I ate healthy, but I still had all these gut problems and confidence problems and emotional traumas. And lo and behold, it legit took me down. And so now, I was a coach when I actually burnt out, which was, a lot of people are shocked to hear. They're like, you're a coach and you ended up in the hospital? What did you do to yourself? And at that point in time, I was pretty new to coaching. I was probably like a year in, and I've been a coach for around 3 years. So from my experience now, learning all through that, it was like my coaching got 1,000 times better because I truly understood what it was to like treat and help and coach holistically, and the mechanisms that do actually cause burnout, which are much different than I think people assume. And I think a lot of people only associate the word burnout with occupation, which is such bullshit. Am I allowed to swear?
Yes, you can swear.
Okay, cool. It's absolute bullshit. Like, burnout is not just a work related problem. It's a life related problem. It's a self-worth related problem. And Yeah, I'll stop there before I go on more of a spiel. I want to make sure I'm going in the right direction.
No, you are.
But yeah,
I was actually really looking forward to this conversation because obviously I know you so well at this point, and I can attest to her skills as a coach because even with our graduate program group chat, like she freaking holds us glued together. Like if I'm like Marielle, I'm like, I am struggling, like
We're burning
give me
out.
something, and she's like, oh girl, like she's like, try this like little activity or do this, and I'm like, wow, I feel so much better. So she's
Thanks,
really great
Amanda.
at what she does. But I am so curious, like what would you say the root causes of burnout are? Like, and like also, is there a way to kind of quantify it like physiologically what happens in the body, or is it very different from person to person?
I think on some level it's the same throughout everybody, but I think it comes from a different place within everybody. So I think there's emotional causes and physical causes of burnout, obviously. And that for most people, it either starts with a physical and turns, oh, I'm freezing. I'll wait. Oh, good. Okay. For most people, it will start with an emotional and turn into a physical, or it starts with a physical and then turns into an emotional, or they can happen simultaneously at the same time, which is what I felt like happened to me. So emotionally, the root of burnout is low self-worth, because if you thought you were worthy and you were enough, you wouldn't be burning yourself out and going above and beyond, trying to people please and be a perfectionist in order to win external validation, because you wouldn't need it.
Yeah.
And that's mostly like emotionally where should I mic drop? Like,
sorry guys, I gotta go. No, I'm kidding.
All right, we can end that there. That's it. That's all you got to talk about. Damn.
And then physically what that does is, number one, you kind of have to look at the person's coping mechanism to deal with their low self-worth. So like for me, it was over exercising. I was over exercising. I ate super healthy and I ate like 4 meals a day, but I was chronically under eating for the amount of calories that I was burning. I was underweight. I was in hypothalamic amenorrhea. I was the whole 9 yards. And so my coping mechanism for my low self-worth was perfectionism. So I didn't give a shit about people pleasing, which is funny because some people think they go together. I think there's a distinct difference between the two, but I was a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And so if I have a perfect body, if I have the perfect hair and the perfect face, and I say all the perfect things, then there's no chance on earth that I'm not enough and that everybody will love me and that I'll get all the attention I need and I'll live happily ever after. And part of that protection mechanism, which I'll talk about when I talk about the brain, is that my protector part was, okay, if you have a perfect body and work out all the time, that's something that we can control. And that way you can feel good about yourself. And that when you walk into a room, you know, oh, I'm the skinny bitch with abs. My life is better than yours. Like, yeah. And that's how I would protect myself. And so that's just one example. Another coping mechanism can be overeating or undereating, or overworking like crazy. Like people, Amanda calls them stress cadets, which I think is funny. And then a lot of people are empaths or like FOMO. So people who are like, in order to feel like they are worthy or they're included or they feel like they belong, they'll go out all the time and they'll drink like fishes so that they fit in with a certain crowd, because everybody is just looking for their 3 basic needs, which are love, safety, and belonging. And so whatever coping mechanism that you use physically is going to come from the emotional that you're having. And then physically what that does, whether you're doing any of the things I just mentioned, it has a certain physical impact on the body, and also your thought process has a physical impact on your body. I'm sure both of you have heard this quote, but like your psychology creates your biology, and your biology creates your psychology. If you don't feel well, you're going to think you're going to mentally feel like shit. And if you mentally feel like shit, you're not going to feel good about yourself. And that can lead you down a rabbit hole of other stuff. So all of this goes together. And that's something that I didn't understand before I had it end up in the ER. So what was I saying? Quantifying the physical. Yeah. So, and then what this does that, I mean, I feel like anybody on this side of the internet now knows the stress response, right? So it's going to elevate your cortisol. And it's going to get you to a certain stage of, I don't know where the world is at on using the term adrenal fatigue these
Yeah, I
days. I feel
know.
some people like it, some people hate it,
Mhm.
but it is an organ and it can get fatigued. So like, or a gland, and it can get fatigued. So like I went from stage, I believe it's 2, when it's just like chronically high, to stage 3 where it just mine turned off. It
Hmm.
turned off and I literally didn't produce anymore. So when I went to the
Yeah.
ER and they were running all these blood tests on me, they're like, your cortisol is low. And I'm like, well, yeah, no shit.
Yeah, I feel like
I
it's
can't
low.
stand up. Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? But to them, like it being low is a good thing because usually you see it chronically high. And
Right.
this can also elevate your CRP and your inflammation levels, and it'll disrupt your HPA axis, which will lead to gastrointestinal issues and all of this other stuff. So there's a shit ton of shit that will happen physically.
Yeah.
And that will lead to the burnout. But the root
Right.
cause of it is whatever is the stress and the emotional wound that you have that is inducing that stress and the coping mechanism that you're using.
Now,
Do
do
you
you?
see why she's so cool?
I know she's amazing. I can
Yeah.
literally just sit back and have her just talk at me, and I
Yeah.
love every second of it. Do you find now working with people in your experience of doing this and dealing with burnout, quote unquote, we'll say, that control, like you said, your form of control and you want to control, do you find that seems to be like an constantly reoccurring thing? People are looking for control in one way or another, and they're trying to validate their feelings by controlling something, like you were controlling through your body image. Like, okay, people must love me because I can control how much I work out and how I diet, and then I'll look good. And then if I look good, people love me.
Mhm.
Like, do you find that's the correlation with most people? Not working out, but in general, they're trying to control some aspect that they feel like they, in other aspects of life, they have no control.
Absolutely. And especially since like working with young women,
Mhm.
I see it so much. And I see it in ways that because I always say coaching is like is talking to someone who doesn't have blinders on. Like I always tell my clients, I'm like, you have your horse blinders on. That's not a bad thing. It's just like you can't see the things that you're doing because you're in it.
Mhm.
And I can tell you for a fact what you're doing, but
Yeah.
I can tell you how you're doing it because I can see your whole situation because it's not my situation.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, the control is a huge thing. I like to say that there's 5 types of people that burn out.
Mhm.
It's perfectionists,
Mhm.
people pleasers, empaths, and fixers. So for any females who are listening to this, when you find a man that you want to fix.
A fixer-upper guy.
Yes. Where you're like, oh, he's so damaged, but I know I can be the one that fixes him. That's a control thing because if you
And
fix
run.
this man and you have this little project, then he's
Mhm.
gonna love you. Like, what can I do for this person for them to like me? And you spend all your energy on it.
Mhm.
And then if you don't get reciprocated, you think there's something wrong with you. And then the other is a stress addict or a stress cadet. And then FOMO, which I talked about earlier, like fear of missing out. Because all of those people expend so much energy in the direction of other people and nothing to do with themselves. So they're trying to control everything outside of them to
Which you
feel a
can't do.
certain way about
Yeah.
themselves. But what they end up doing is neglecting themselves to the point where their self-talk is so terrible, their
Mhm.
coping mechanisms suck. Sorry, but they do.
Mhm. It's true.
And that their nervous systems are so dysregulated that they just end up in this chronic state of fight or flight that they don't even realize that they're in because it's technically like mostly perceived stress as opposed to physical stress.
Mhm.
And they can't even catch on. And then they just get stuck in this cycle because they're repeating the same lessons that they're not learning,
Nice.
which is the inability to let go.
Yes.
So how often do you see all of these qualities come up in a person?
I feel like it's like
all
a lot.
5. I see all 5 a lot. The one I see the least, I would say, is FOMO.
Okay.
A lot of people, because I feel like there's 2 types of coping. I mean, there is 2 types, but I feel like people either have to be out and about and around people or they self-isolate like crazy. And within like the stress, I would say is like where people are the most anxious.
Mhm.
Because of their stress response, but I do see the people pleasing and the perfection tied together a lot. I do see the poor little empaths, man. Whew. They get it hard too. And I think that's because all empaths think being an empath is a bad thing.
Mhm.
And that, oh my God, I absorb everybody's shit and blah, 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 blah. I can't be around problems. I'm like, no, okay, that's a limiting belief that you're telling yourself. Because as an empath, if you look at it as being, if you look at it as being a superpower, then you can work with it as
Mhm.
opposed to letting it like control you. Because
Totally.
when I found out I was an empath, I used to like freak out around being around people that were sad because I'd be like, I'm going to absorb their pain and it's going to make my stuff worse. And I was like, Mariella, what? All that work about typing. But a lot of people don't even know that these things are going on. But yes, I see all 5 or less or a few tied up with the same people all the time.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I think I love looking at it like a superpower too, because I didn't even know what the word empathic meant like a couple years ago. And then someone told me, they're like, oh, you're so empathic. And I was, Google search. I'm like, what does that mean? And I was like, oh, maybe I am a little empathic. And then something similar happened where I was like, is it a bad thing? Like, am I absorbing too much? And I think there is like, a really fine line there, but something that always has helped me is seeing it as a superpower and using it in that way. And I think that's like with any of these things too, like there are, wherever there's like a negative, there's also a positive, right? Wouldn't you say like there would be another side to this as well?
Yes, everything is perception. I'm a big
Yeah.
believer everything happens for a reason and absolutely everything is perception and that you can only go as far as your belief system will allow you to. And not to say that you're not allowed to have bad days. I had bad days all the effing time. Ask Amanda. Yesterday I texted her and I was in full panic mode over something. Like
help.
I was like, help, please. Oh my
I
God.
think sometimes people assume as coaches that we're just like chilling and we got it all together. But trust me, like the reason that we're good at what we do is because we've experienced a lot of what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
You said that to me before, Amanda. You're like, do you get stressed out? I was like, oh, I do.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Nick's amazing. Like I've gone to him for, back pain or hip pain or something, but it's also a therapy session. So it's a 2-for-1.
Mhm.
And
You
he's
talk a lot.
so great at, yeah, he's so like, you're someone that's so great at always seeing the positive side of things and like showing like empowering people. That's really
Mhm.
why you do what you do.
It's not so much a positive aspect too. It's talking to just being rational.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to. It's like, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I'm an optimistic at the end of the day. Yes, I do err more on the optimistic side of things, I guess you could say, but it's like break it down into rational components. So when I'm dealing with someone in pain, I'm like, listen, well, you said a week ago you couldn't walk for 10 minutes. You just walked for 30 and sat and stood and did all this other stuff. How is that not like that's a rational thought process to
Right.
make you feel better? It's not like I'm like lying to them. I'm like, listen, we have objectives here. This is just numbers. Like same with both of you. When you deal with people, it's like, I mean, I see Amanda's posts all the time that say that with people. It's like, hey, I was able to go out and I didn't feel bloated in my own skin or feel terrible. And I didn't care that people were judging me or not judging me. I didn't care what people thought because I said, hey, I have to be gluten-free today. You know what I mean? Like, what a relief that is.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, completely. And I think that what I see in my job too is that so much of that belief system, like when I start oh my God, let me just say this. Every time I start a session with a client, I ask them what's going well.
Beautiful.
Because they always want to open their computer and go, Mariella, blah, 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 and list all their challenges and all this stuff. And I go, hold up. What is going well? I don't want to hear about your challenges yet. I'm not asking. And I know what is going well. And I force them to tell me about everything that's going well in their lives with the work that we're doing together. And then just in general, almost like a little mini gratitude list. And then I go, okay, now tell me your challenges. And by the time they get to their challenges, they list like 2 things. And the reason why I feel like so many people, myself included, freak out over the negatives is because they give it more weight than they do the positives. So there could be 10 positives, but positivity is light. It's airy. It's meant to feel that way.
Yeah.
Negatives suck. So they're going to feel heavier.
Yes.
They're going to feel like you're trying to lift a 10-pound weight as opposed to like doing a press up with like nothing. You're
touching on something so important here because this happens with people that start to feel better in terms of their health. So maybe someone that goes through a gut protocol, and I can attest to this myself too, where things got so much better and I forgot how I used to feel. And then I was like, well, did anything even change? Like you kind of forget how you used to feel because you're now living in this state where you don't have to worry about being chronically bloated, not going to the bathroom, not being in pain, or any of that other stuff. And yeah, you're right. I just feel like a light bulb just went off. It is so much lighter than the negatives.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like within burnout, I feel like people always want to know about like, okay, how do I do my sleep hygiene? How do I do my nutrition? How do I, work on my productivity? How do I get organized? How do I form a routine? How do I do like all this like really tangible stuff that they can almost do with their hands, right? But I'm like, you can do all of that, but unless you fix the belief system, none of that is going to matter. Because if you have this thing in your head that you're an insomniac and you can't sleep, which is a lie that you're telling yourself, like people are going to hate me. I don't believe in insomnia. Like, I think insomnia has a root cause. Like, I think it's fully treatable. Like, I really do think that there's a reason for it. Do I think that everybody is on the train where they get to figure it out? Sadly, no. But I do think like I've reversed insomnia on a few people. So like I really do think that like sleep is like one thing that you can like everybody can fix their sleep. But are you willing to fix your sleep? Are you willing to release the belief and the habit and the behaviors you have around sleep? Are you willing to put your phone down 30 minutes, not even more, 30 minutes? Are you willing to order a pair of blue light glasses for $10 off of Amazon? Are you willing to believe that you are capable of having a good night's sleep? Because all of that is essentially what matters. Do you mind if I talk about the brain?
No,
please.
Talk about this guy.
It's insane. So let's start there.
Yeah. Wait, how much time you got, Nick?
So what I've learned through my own healing, because I'm fully healed of my burnout, I will say, but there are some other things that I'm still taking care of that we didn't really know were a thing until later. So I'm fully down this rabbit hole right now of neuroscience and brain rewiring and brain training, which is something that I always did, but now I understand it on like a way deeper level. And so I just updated my coaching program to incorporate all this stuff so I could explain it on a deeper level, because it ties in with the nervous system. Everybody thinks that we're gatekeeping how to brain train and heal the nervous system, but we're not. It's stupidly straightforward. Everybody just doesn't think that they're capable of doing it, and they don't want to put in the time and the effort because it is exhausting. It's exhausting. But it's worth it. So technically, in terms of like burnout, this like core wound of low self-worth comes from a limiting belief that you have based off evidence that you collected through your life. So let's say, for example, a girl comes to me and she doesn't think she's good enough, and that's her limiting belief, right? She doesn't think she's good enough to date the guy or get the job or wear that outfit. She doesn't think she's good enough at all. And so it makes her look for all these external validations and have all these shitty coping mechanisms. So I ask her, okay, I want you to write that limiting belief on one side of this piece of paper. I am not good enough. Okay. Why do you believe that? I want to know exactly what in your brain and in your psyche has led you to believe on this very like heavy level that you're truly not good enough. And it always has something to do with their upbringing or an experience that they had. So I'll use myself as a example, because everybody loves a good vulnerability moment. So like if I were to do this for myself again, because this is something that I've definitely worked through, is feeling good enough. If I were to say, oh, I'm not good enough, it would have come from, I did theater my whole life growing up, right? So like not being picked to play the part, huge hit to the ego at 8 years old, huge. And then you do it repeatedly over and over. So every show I try out for, if I get the part, it's, oh my God, yes, I'm good enough. And if I don't, it's, oh, fuck, like, oh God, I could have done better. Da, 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 da. And then like I grew up with a mom who was very like, again, like an almond mom, like love her to death, but very focused on how I look, how I sound. Am I ladylike? Is my body okay? Any of that sort of stuff. And then when I was 15, I had my heart broken for the first time. And that was like a real blow, right? I was like, oh my God, that was the first time in my life where I was like, my body sucks. Like, and I have all these little past beliefs of I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And then your inner critic starts to say it on repeat, like a little bitch. So if that girl would have the same belief from that evidence as I did, I would say, okay, what do you want to believe instead? And I would say that I'm good enough. And I was like, okay, I am good enough always just the way that I am. And I sort of turn it into an affirmation. And then I say, okay, what is everything in your life that you have experienced or seen in yourself or in another life that proves that to you? And they go, that proves I'm enough? And I go, yes. What is the evidence that you currently have that proves that you are enough? I have friends. Okay, cool. I have a family that loves me. Great. I think I have pretty hair. Okay, cool. If that makes you feel good enough, I love that. Is there anywhere else in life that you see people who know they're good enough? Oh my God, I have one client who's obsessed with Zendaya. And she's like, Zendaya definitely thinks she's good enough. And I'm like, oh, fuck, of course she does. Like, Zendaya knows she's enough. Are you kidding? And I was like, movies, podcasts, anything that you hear, I want you to start adding it to this evidence list, because this is what you're going to start doing is you're going to think of this affirmation and then think of all the evidence you have underneath it, because that is the proof, because the brain is not going to believe anything without proof. You cannot trick it. You can't. If you are to say, I'm a millionaire, your brain's going to go, no, the fuck you're not. Check your bank account. Because all the evidence and proof it has is like, you're not a millionaire.
Yeah.
And so you can say, I'm abundant, and then list out all the reasons why you're abundant.
Love that. Comes back to being realistic, like you were saying before.
Yeah. And so what this does is there's a very strong neural pathway in your brain that is turning left when you say, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And the stronger the neural pathway is, the more available it is, almost like convenience food, right? Like all your limiting beliefs are the fast food restaurants, and all the things that you want to believe instead are all like the really, really fancy restaurants that you can't afford yet. So it's like, how do I stop going to the fast food restaurants because I'm hungry and start going to the other ones, even if all I can order is a glass of fucking water at first, right? I just made up that metaphor. I hope that's
amazing.
Cool. So with this new belief system that we just wrote down, I want you to start turning right instead of left. And the more we start to turn right, and the more we can measure your heart rate variability and keep your nervous system calm and activate your vagal tone, and start using all these like mini tools and techniques that I individualize for people, because not everything works for the same people, to start changing your belief system about yourself. You're no longer going to need a boyfriend to feel good about yourself. You're no longer going to have to put in an extra 8 hours a week or a day at work. I don't know. To feel like people notice the good work that you're doing. You're not going to need external validation. You're not going to need people to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, good job, because you're going to know that you did it. You're going to know that you're enough. And so this is with everything in life. The way that you treat burnout is the way that you treat any other problem. It's, how can I feel better about my life? And how can I break the cycle of what I'm doing? And it's with that. It's with the belief system of the brain. And then the reason why we are always trying to turn left instead of right, or go down the road that is normal, is because the brain's always going to choose what's familiar. It's always going to choose what's pleasurable, and it's always trying to keep you safe. Your protector part is on full alert all the time.
Yes.
All the time. And a lot of people with chronic pain.
Yes. See, I was waiting for you to get there.
Yeah.
Because pain, you're touching on all the pain science topics that I go through with people, teaching them pain science. And you're saying all these things. And I was like, I have this conversation on a daily basis with people about pain science and all that.
Do you tell them about the amygdala?
I don't use fancy terms like the amygdala, no.
No. See, I always tell my 20-year-old girlies, there's this piece of your brain that's shaped like an almond, and it's called the amygdala. And it is the part of your brain that creates pain, like essentially, right? Like you would agree, like my brain science is probably not as accurately, like, oh my God, what am I trying to say? I don't know how to like say it fully correct, but it's the part of your brain that gets turned on when there's danger, and it goes, oh, let me protect the body. Let me secrete all these hormones to create pain, so you don't go do that thing that we think is bad. Yeah. And the thing about the amygdala is that I tell people to talk to it. I heard this. I can't take credit for this. I heard this from my nervous system coach. Her name is Faith Ashton. Can't take credit for it, but she tells people to talk to the amygdala. And now I tell people to talk to the amygdala, because it's this little tiny little almond shaped thing in your brain. Tell it to shut up. Be like, no, I'm safe. And that's part of like interrupting the thought pattern, right? Because you hear these stories all the time, especially if anybody here follows Dr. Joe Dispenza, of people healing their body of chronic pain and chronic disorders just from thought process and meditation, because what they do is they calm the body and they get that pain response to stop and to turn off. There's a bunch of other factors that go into chronic pain, obviously.
But that's very, you're right,
for
though.
girls that think they're not enough because they got broken up with, I'm like, tell your amygdala to shut up.
Just tell it to be quiet. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's amazing that the brain is, and we talk about this a lot with my patients, my friends that are PTs, and going down the pain science rabbit hole of just thought process and that aspect of it, of like, are you in pain or are you not in pain? Is it your fear avoidance, or have you become a victim of your pain? Now your identity is your pain because you're worried that someone's not going to ask you how your back is doing, but that means they may not talk to you anymore because they don't want to know about your back. And once again, bring it back to what you said, feeling of not worthiness. So maybe I will be in pain all the time. So someone asks me how I'm doing. And then I will say, not well. And then they'll be like, oh my gosh. And then it's like, you get validation because you feel good because someone cares about you, but that's not true. They care about you no matter what.
Guys, this is so good.
Your brain doesn't think that. Isn't that crazy? Oh my God.
It's
I'm
so
like geeking out right now. I'm
us.
geeking out so hard right now. No, but and it's like, it's totally completely true. And I always like, one of my favorite things that I tell myself now is I'm like, I am the CEO of my brain. Any thought I do not want to have, I do not need to have it. I can change my thought the second that I have it. And here's not to say that, like, I think a very big part of healing burnout is releasing the emotion, right? So sometimes I honestly think a spiral is healthy as long as it doesn't result in like an anxiety or panic attack. If it just results in you screaming and crying, I'm all for it. But if it's like anything that like feels not good and like is scary to the body, then I'm like, better not. But like, it's through releasing those emotions and then being able to like change your thought process, because when you change your belief, you change your identity, because you change your behavior and you change your habits. And then when you're a different person, that all the shit that you were once dealing with is no longer relevant. Like, I'm a completely different person than I was 3 years ago because of everything that I've been through and the stuff that I know now. And I'm going to be a completely different person a year from now or 2 years from now. Because as I update my belief system and change my belief system, I change my identity. And I also want people to know that, like, you get to choose who you are.
Yes.
And your burnout, being stuck in your burnout cycle, is letting other people decide it for you.
Should we just mic drop again?
Maybe.
Like, it's just so good. Like, it's so powerful. Like, I want everyone to know this.
You have the power to, I don't know if either of you read the book. I just started it and I'm like halfway through The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
I haven't read it yet. It's on my list.
I would get the audiobook because it's amazing too.
You told me to, yeah.
I did, actually.
There's also a movie now on Amazon.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I'll have to check that out too. But it's what you're saying is you have a lot of it talks about the control aspect. You have the control to do and respond to life how you want to. So do you want to fix your burnout? Everyone says they want to. You know, oh, I'm so burnt out. Oh, I'm so burnt out. I want to fix it. I don't want to be in this rabbit hole. I don't want to do this. But do you?
They're scared. There's a fear around that, like you were going back to before.
Yeah.
Because their brain wants to be comfortable, and you have to get uncomfortable to heal it. It sucks.
Yes.
Like, I never like to sugarcoat that this process is not fun. Like, there's beautiful parts of it. And there's like, when you have that small win, you're like, oh, shit, I'm stupid for it. Yeah. And then you feel really good about yourself. Like, and then, but like the part of getting there, like, it's not easy. Like, I've been at this for like it took me 6 months to get out of my bed.
Yeah.
And it was painful and it sucked and it was a mind fuck, but I did it, you know? And now I, like, Amanda knows, like, a year ago, I was afraid to go to the grocery store or drive a car. And now I'm like, who cares? Like, whatever. Like, now I go on, like, I went to Italy in September.
Nice.
And awesome. I did that on a wing and a prayer because I was still so scared, you know, of like, oh, well, what if even though I'm not burnt out anymore, what if all of a sudden I'm just like stuck in bed halfway across the country? And I'm like, no, brain, like, that's not possible. And then what you guys were talking about in terms of like how you respond, I always tell people, like my control freaks, love you guys, but like the circumstance is the only thing that you don't have control over. Like being stuck in traffic. That's my favorite one.
Used that
You
before.
there's nothing on this planet that you can do that is going to get you out of this traffic.
Yep.
You
Yes.
can't manifest your way out of it, so don't even
Nope.
think that you can. It's not happening. There's too many factors at work for you to try and get out of traffic. So the circumstance you cannot change. That is what you can control. But your thought, your feeling, your action, response, all of that you can control. You're giving all your power away to being pissed about the circumstance when you're not even realizing that you being pissed about the circumstance is you not taking action over the control that you do have over your thought, feeling, action, and result. So like, are you going to sit in the car and bitch and cry and elevate your stress levels and freak out about something you can't control? Or are you going to like call your boss, let them know you're running late, and then listen to that podcast episode that you haven't had time to listen to, or call your mom because you have extra time? Which one is better for your body? Which one is healthier for your mind?
It seems so simple. It really does.
I know.
So
It is.
go, Amanda.
Okay.
I was gonna say, just like break down kind of, so people like you don't sugarcoat it for people at all,
No.
about how this is going to be a hard process. But there is no set timeline, but really, can you harp on how long this process can take? Because we in society now want instant fixes and all of that, and there's no way this can be an instant fix to heal things that have been something you've been dealing with for years on end. Because I'm sure most people that you deal with are not like, oh, I feel burnt out. It's the first day I've ever felt burnt out. Let me call Mariella and see if we can fix this. I highly doubt that's ever happened.
Yeah. So, the nice thing is I've never worked with anyone that was in my position of like being hospitalized. I always get people before rock bottom, which is nice, I think. But I would say like for me, it took me 6 months to get out of my bed, 6 months to like feel like a human again. So I would say like a full year up until I was like, okay, I can put the burnout to bed. When I work with people, I tend to work with them. I sign them on for about 3 months.
Okay.
And in that 3 months, I take them through like a 12-step process, like week by week by week, and just adding things on. And I always tell people this process works when you work it. I can give you, anybody can give you the freaking secret to life. But if you don't do anything with it, then it's just knowledge. It's not action. So I think it's very different for everybody, and it depends on what they have going on, especially when I have people with physical symptoms. So if I have a girl that has terrible, terrible acne, I'm like, okay, then you got to get your stress levels down, and I need you to check your gut. And like, how long is it going to take for you to order your gut test and then get it done and then get the results back? That itself can take a month and a half. You know what I mean? So, but in terms of the belief work, that never stops. You can fix your sleep in 2 weeks. Depending on like how bad it is. I mean, I've never met anyone, I don't work with people with like sleep apnea and like all this stuff. So like I get girlies to change their sleep in 2 weeks, and I can get someone's diet to be better in a month. I can get your energy and your vibration higher in a month, and in a matter of weeks. But your belief system, that is never going to stop being important, because every time, because like cultivating, like preventing burnout is the step after you heal. And so like you can be a master of routine, because like I think like Amanda was saying earlier, like we will post in our school group chat, like, oh my God, Mariella, I'm burning out, what do I do? And the reason I don't burn out over school is because I'm a master at productivity. I'm like a master at like keeping myself organized and knowing when and how I do things. Like I can teach anyone how to block schedule. I can teach anyone how to be a master at productivity. What I can't do for you is the work. So it takes as long as they want it to take. I always ask people this question, because again, I don't sugarcoat it. I go, how long do you want to suffer?
Damn. Shit.
No, like
you're right. Yeah.
Look at my face and I go, how long do you want to suffer? How long do you want to hate yourself? How long do you want this to be your life? Because if you don't like the channel, change it. And it doesn't mean that it takes a click of a button, but maybe the remote is like lost in a corner of the house. In order to change the channel, first of all, you have to go find the remote. And maybe it's in the attic in one of the 17 million boxes that you have to comb through in order to find the remote. And then you have to pick everything back up, put it back into its boxes, go downstairs, and then change the channel. But then, oh, there's so many options. I don't know what channel I want to change to. And then you have to choose, right? Oh, maybe the TV is broken. Shit. Now you got to fix the TV before you can change the channel. Like, I'm not saying it's like a click of a button, but I'm saying that it's a process, but you have to make the decision. Like you'll start healing when you decide to heal. And that's the belief. That's the choice. That's like, I also don't believe in motivation.
Elaborate.
I don't believe in motivation. I believe in discipline, because I think
Agreed.
that motivation is just, yay.
Now that you said it, when you said it, elaborate a little bit
Yeah.
more. If you didn't add discipline in there, I'm like, okay, I don't know what she's talking about. But if you added discipline in there, yes, I 100% agree with that, because it's like, okay,
Motivation is just a fluff word.
yeah,
I think
motivation goes away.
Yeah, it's very
I think
transient.
they mad at themselves because they're like, I can't get motivated. I can't get motivated. I'm like, well, number one, you're
You're
probably
looking for motivation.
you're looking for the motivation, and also like a lack of motivation usually comes from a lack of energy, physically or mentally. So I'm like, okay, well, number one, you're burnt out. So yeah, you have no motivation to do anything. You're tired.
Yeah.
And like the discipline first might come from, okay, am I going to try and do all the things I want to be doing, or am I going to be disciplined enough to lay in my bed and rest and do my breathing exercises and eat my 3 meals a day like I'm telling you to do? Like what's the choice here? You know? So it's like, how long do you want to suffer? And you have to get disciplined. I can teach you how to be disciplined. I can't teach you how to be motivated. I've never, ever in my 3 years of coaching been able to try and teach someone how to be motivated, because I feel like it doesn't exist.
Yeah. And if anything, like we were saying before, it's transient. Like it's a quick here and there, you know.
You see that video,
like your classic like coach motivation, like hilarious, like personal training videos from 2012 where someone's like yelling at someone on the treadmill, like that's out. It's doesn't work. We know that.
That lasts about what, 20 minutes?
Right. And it's usually more
was fun.
traumatic than anything. Yeah.
You're like, all right, I'm done. Now what?
I do think the why is super important. I think the why is what helps you stay disciplined. And I mean, I've never met a coach that's not like, oh wait, what's my favorite saying? Oh God. I think Tony Robbins is the one that says it. I could be totally wrong. He's like, if your why doesn't make you cry, you need a new one.
I've heard similar, but it's true. It's not strong enough if it doesn't make you cry.
Oh yeah. My why will make me stop and sob in a second, in a split second. My why makes me cry. And if your why makes you cry, then you'll stay disciplined, because the second you don't want to do something, you think about that why and you're like, oh, here we go. And then you do it.
And it can't be to bring. So there's so many amazing topics in this whole conversation here. We have to have you back on again, obviously, talk about more, because this is amazing. But like that why aspect, just understanding that why aspect. And it can't be a fluff why. Like, you know what I'm saying by fluff why is, my why is I just want to be a better person. That's kind of like a fluff why. You got to get into detail with it. Like Mariella said, that it could bring her to tears. My why, what I do is the same thing. It gets me emotional. I don't know if I get to tears, but I really do get choked up about it because I'm so passionate about it. Your why has to be that. If you want to help yourself or be something, whatever your goal is, that why has to be so powerful to you that you actually believe that you can get there, and that you believe that it's going to create a transformation for the world around you, which can be just bettering yourself to be, you know what I'm saying? Like it's so powerful to know your why. And Amanda talks, and I've talked about it on almost every episode. I feel like, know your why, just know it, you know?
Yeah, no, it's true. And like, write it somewhere, have it on your computer, put it as your phone background. It's got to be in the forefront, and you have to come back to that when you are feeling, because again, like Mariella, we both deal with people that are physically feel tired, and like you said, that will translate into lack of motivation, and breaking that tired cycle of not sleeping, not eating right, like that can take time. And people are like, well, I just don't have the energy to cook, I just don't have the energy to do this. Well, that's when you come back to that why. That's when you stop looking for the motivation, and that's when you just do it. Like whatever you can do, you do, and that's it. And you do that over and over and over again, and before you know it, you're like, oh wow, my life changed, I feel great.
I haven't touched on this part of burnout yet, but like, in addition to the belief work, all of burnout is learning how to put yourself first.
Like if you walk away from my program feeling like a selfish bitch, I'll be so
Oh,
happy.
You have done it right.
You have done it right. My family, when I went on this journey, like I love my family, but you all know, like family is where it's like you're never meaner to people that you love than your family.
Yep.
But
Some of the hardest lessons come
Yeah.
from family.
exactly.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so when I went on this journey, they would legit call me a selfish bitch, and they meant it mean, because they would ask me to do favors and I would say no.
Mm.
And when you learn how to say no, you're gonna piss people off.
Mm-hmm.
People are gonna be like, what? You always say yes. Now you're saying no, you can't help me with this. No, I can't. I can't. No, because look at what happened to me from always saying yes. Look at what happened to me from trying to be everything for everybody else. So I think it's around like week 5 or 6 where like in my program, like I'm doing air quotes if anybody knows, but because everybody's different. So like I have a roadmap, but like whatever you're landing is where you're landing depending on the person. But I focus so heavily on self-care and the right form of self-care, because it's not like, oh my God, Brianna Weiss is one of my favorite authors. She wrote, if anybody's ever been on Pinterest, the 100 essays that'll change the way you think. When you're ready, this is how you heal. And The Mountain is You. I don't know what her background is, because she was like an English major in college, but she writes these books about healing that you're like, holy fuck. Like
She's really
did
good.
God speak through your hand when you wrote this? Like it's insane. And she says, true self-care is not bath bombs and chocolate. It's building a life you don't want to escape from.
Yes.
And escapism is also a coping mechanism, right? So when I work with people, it's like, okay, well, what is your why? And how can you put yourself first to achieve it? Because people get uncomfortable with choosing themselves.
Of course. Self-care is not selfish.
Absolutely.
You got to do that.
Selfish, which is exactly why I'm like, if you feel like a selfish bitch, I am proud of you.
Good.
Tattooed on your forehead. Maybe I'll make merch with sweatshirts. Selfish bitch.
Yeah. I'll
love everyone wear them with pride. But
of course.
it's so important, and it breaks my heart that like young women, like 20, like I'm only 26. I know Amanda's younger than me. But
Yeah,
like
Amanda's a baby.
Amanda's a baby. But like women our age are like incapable of feeling good about themselves and choosing themselves, because they feel like they only get liked when they put themselves last, especially when it comes to like family or relationships or work. It's so sad to see, especially like as someone who's been through like the more intense end of it. Breaks my fucking heart. But back to like the why helps you choose yourself.
Yeah. You know what
Yes.
I'm thankful for? Because like I've definitely experienced some of the things that you're talking about as well. And I think that's why we connected so well at first. We were like, oh, cool.
Oh my God.
You understand. Yeah.
We gravitated toward each other like little magnets.
It was what? Like the first semester, I think. And we have an online program too. So
like
I don't even know how it really happened. Maybe it was Instagram or something. I'm not sure. But I think like the most amazing part about all of it is the fact that like we're now able to help other people see that. And I think that has always been part of my why. Like I don't know what your opinion on this, and maybe this is just like me being, again, coming back to that, like not feeling good enough, highly empathic, but part of it is I love doing my own work because I get to go share that. Like I get to go help someone else. And now that I'm saying it again, I'm like, is that bad too? You know what I mean?
No, because I wanted to talk about this too. I feel like some people get too humble when they're making their why. Your why is not the time to be humble. Like I'll tell you for a fact, like my why is money. Like I love money. Like I want enough money to be able to live the life that I want to live and move back to New York. And I also want money because I want to be able to retire my father. I want to help pay for all the things that they paid for when I was broken, bedridden. But I always tell people, like, it's not the money that you want, it's the feeling and the freedom that it's going to give you, right?
Yes.
So don't attach it just to one word. You have to say, okay, well, what is the picture look like, right? And so Amanda, if your why is like helping people, like that's not selfish, you know what I mean? That's that doesn't make it seem like you're only in it for like attention. Because some people might think that, you know, like that's not true. And then like my other why is like, I want to eat cake at my wedding. You know, like I want to eat cake at my wedding. Like I want to be able.
You have to explain that one for Nick.
Oh yeah.
I'm kind of lost, but I feel like I understand.
Sorry, I have a GI issue that I developed after COVID.
Oh,
But not
right.
really. I guess like it's really not a secret, but I'm detoxing from heavy metal toxicity,
Yeah.
and heavy metals destroy your gut and they destroy your immune system and they destroy your nervous system. So they were actually part of the reason I burned out. But like I healed my own chronic fatigue, like snap of a finger, and then I have a few symptoms that just won't go away. And then I finally got tested for metals, and I was like, oh, but like I want to eat cake in my wedding and drink champagne. And so whatever the fuck I have to do to make that happen, I'm gonna make that happen.
See? But that's her look how strong she says her why. Like if you're not that passionate about eating fucking cake at your goddamn wedding like that,
right?
like or even so like that's the thing too. And we could keep going on this, but eventually we do got to wrap this up. But like see how do you understand how passionate her why is? So when you're listening to this, and if you really want to start making changes, the first thing you can do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is understand your why and where do you see yourself in your life in the future. What is that why? Is it something like I want to eat fucking cake at my wedding? But you have to be passionate about it. It can't be like I want to exercise every day.
No. Oh my God, that's gonna get you nowhere.
Exactly. Like
nowhere.
There has to be something. Like she said with money too. Money. It's not that she wants all the money. There's something attached to the money, a tangible feeling of freedom to give to her parents to retire because they paid for things while she was bedridden, to move back to NYC because NYC gives her a feeling of freedom and empowerment. You know, like Amanda, we can go back to your why of I remember talking to you 2 years ago. No, is it 2 years or 3 years now? 3 years ago, it's got to be.
Damn, you guys are friends.
3 years ago, talking to you, sitting in my office saying, I don't know what the hell I want to do with my life. I was like, you start that business and you do it. I want to be able to travel.
It's like, yeah.
And literally look at you now. You're in Denver, right? Yeah, Denver.
Yeah.
Doing what you wanted to do because you were so passionate and you knew your why and you just ran with it. And
there was a fire under my ass.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I also was like, what's the problem? Why can't you do it? And you're like, well, and I was like, well, but you're not giving me any logical reasons of why you can't do it.
Yep.
And
and I'll say that to the end, like Nick was someone that totally catapulted. What's the word? I don't know.
Inspired.
Catalyst. Maybe that's what I'm trying to think of. Total catalyst in my career as a nutritionist and even living in Denver. Like he was such a great role model and someone to talk to at that point. So we'll forever be thankful for those conversations.
They're good stuff.
Yeah.
So one last thing I want to say on the why. I think people will talk themselves out of it all out of fear. And that's when that belief work comes in. So like whenever if you're listening and you're like, well, it's easy for you to say, like, you guys sound fearless. I'm not fucking fearless. Like there was one point in time where I was afraid to live inside my own body. Like, but I'm telling you, like, it gets better when you choose your why and you choose to run into the fear. Like my new life motto is if it scares you, run at it.
Yes.
Run towards it. Even if it feels like a brick wall, like, oh my God, wait, you know those things when you were a kid or you saw them on like Nick Jr. or whatever, the game shows and stuff, when they would like jump on something, they would Velcro to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like those Velcro walls, like you are wearing a Velcro suit. Your fear is made of Velcro. I want you to run towards it and fucking stick yourself to it because that's the only way that you're going to get it. And you're going to see that it's really not that scary. And it's all just part of that belief work.
And here's the thing too, and this is where it goes, and then we'll wrap it up, I promise. But we'll just have to make it 2 episodes. So we're talking about the physical part of it before too, and how that manifests in the body. And the thing is, like, you can take your fear, and if you can sit with it, and I always say invite your thoughts in for tea. If you can sit with them and just invite them in, get curious about them, you realize that they're not even that scary at all. And you're fine. And it's the same thing physically too. I had a headache yesterday. Okay. Old Amanda a couple years ago would have popped a couple Tylenol, went on with my day. Yesterday, I sat there in the morning. I took a couple deep breaths. I did a body scan. I sent breath to that area. I know this sounds so woo-woo, but I sent breath to the area. And I physically imagined myself releasing the tension and releasing the pain. And then I went on with my day and I had a wonderful day without a headache. Like you can do that with pain. But I think obviously, you know, with more chronic pain, it takes more than just maybe sitting there for a couple minutes. But I think that we have to get better with that, with dealing with some of that pain and recognizing that it's actually our body just doing its job. There's been so many examples like that I've even, you know, seen in coaching and with my own health too, whether it's like a fever, a UTI, a bacterial imbalance. Think about bacterial imbalances. You take antimicrobials, things get worse before they get better. It's uncomfortable. You have to sit with that, but that's part of your body's process of getting shit out. Simply slapping on a medication and trying to instantly feel better doesn't fix the problem. And it's the same thing with our thoughts and our fears. Like it's the same lesson in all of this.
Yes. Your fears are, like you just said, with all of that, that's where people get caught up, is that fear. Like you, with the things may get worse before they get better, where you two as coaches and me as a therapist, we have to tell people, if we educate them enough so they understand, their fears will calm down. So, hey, this is normal. This is not normal. You guys have a lot of access to your clients. Amanda knows that I have access. All my patients have my cell phone number and they can text me. And the reason they have that number is to say, hey, I felt this. Is this normal? That's all. And it can be a simple conversation of, yes, it's normal. Don't worry. It's X, Y, and Z. As opposed to they're festering on it for a year or a week till I see them again. And their fear start getting to them. And then it's like, well, maybe I'm not meant to be out of pain. Or maybe I'm not meant to look good. Or maybe I'm not meant to be the most badass, selfish bitch I'm supposed to be. You know?
So good. If anyone's watching the YouTube, they'll see that I've been nodding the entire time because I'm fully backing up everything you two are saying. But yeah, no, I mean, this has been so awesome. We're definitely going to have you back.
Yes.
So thank you so much for coming on today. Nick, I feel like you have something to say.
Yes. Before we end though, I want Mariella to tell us so people can find her and start working on themselves. But so go over real quick some basic, what are some signs that you may possibly be burning out?
Okay.
And where can people find you? Social media, talk about all the stuff where people can find you, your website, all of that. We'll link it all for everyone to follow as well. But give some people some tangible stuff, because some people may not realize they're burning out until it's further along. Hopefully they never get to your state, but we want people to know, like, hey, listen, this is probably signs that you may be. So like just run through some of those, and then where everyone can find you and how to learn more about you.
Deal. Okay. So some signs that you're burning out, physically, I'll go physically then emotional. Physically, anything that has to do with the body purging. So toxins, so like acne, if you have acne, if you have gut problems, if you are oh my God, wired and tired. So it's like when you try and go to bed at night, if you can't fall asleep, and then you're like super tired during the day, that means your circadian rhythm is off. That's a really huge sign of burnout. If you have really high anxiety levels or you're prone to anxiety or panic attacks, that's another one. I know before I burnt out, I was never anxious in my life. And like the last 3 months before I ended up in the ER, I was so anxious I couldn't go places by myself. I had to take a buddy everywhere I went. It was weird. It was very weird. Some other physical symptoms would just be like pain in general. Like if you get really, really, really sore after you're working out, or you get really tired after working out, if you don't have an appetite or your appetite's insane, either one, it's like pretty much just like anything that's very poldering of the body or something that's out of the norm for you. I would say is a sign of like physical burnout. And then mentally and emotionally, anxiety, stress, depression, any of those things. And if your inner self-talk is just bad, like if your self-talk is just bad and you're always like, I always call it's like, you know, when you have like when you are, oh God, what is it? This is the metaphor that I'm missing now. But it's almost like you're a dog, like trying to like sniff for treats. You're like, okay, well, who's going to give me validation today? Where can I find my validation today? Another is if you're, I don't want to say unmotivated, I'll say undisciplined. Like if you don't want to do anything, like you have no motivation to do anything, or the things that brought you joy no longer bring you joy, or you're very just unhappy with your life because it's just going to get worse from there. So if you don't like your job, X, Y, and Z, if you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, like pretty much. Yeah.
Change.
Everybody out there is going to be like, fuck, I must be burnt out then.
Yeah. Damn, I hate my job. No, do you actually hate your job? Like you got to think of that.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Oh, and then you can find me on Instagram. You can visit the link in my bio on my Instagram to set up a free first call with me. All my first calls are free, and then you can work with me from there. I also have a free PDF of 2 weeks. Oh my god, what is it? What is it called? Oh my god, what is it called? It's something
Break up with
like
burnout?
no, it's 2 weeks to the best sleep in your life, or best sleep in your life in 2 weeks, something like that. I have a PDF that goes all about sleep hygiene and how to it's like a mini course book, how to implement and get the best sleep of your life in 2 weeks. I think that's what it's probably called. And that's in my bio as well. And then feel free to DM me any questions. I have a TikTok. I'm trying to be better about it. You can find me on there too. I talk more on my TikTok. My Instagram is very much more aesthetic.
Oh, well then. That's okay.
But that's how they can find me.
So yes, thank you for coming on. This was an amazing. We have to have you back again to just talk more about everything we could talk about, because there was, I don't know, like 17,000 nuggets and mic drops and gems and all of this, which was amazing. So you're always welcome back. We got other topics we can always talk about. We can go on the brain for like, you went on the brain and I was like, oh my God, we're going to be on this for 7 hours because it's amazing.
Just wait, like I'm watching a whole seminar on rewiring your brain right now.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, it's wild. So thank you for coming on. Amanda, as always, another amazing episode. We will definitely have Mariella back. Everyone who's listening, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen. Please like, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, comment and also subscribe. And please give us a rating if you really like what you hear. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.